Hello, guys. Hello, dear teachers. Welcome to the webinar. Hello, guys. Okay, so let me introduce myself. My name is Anastasia. I am an English teacher, a methodologist, and a trainer for the Green Country School network. And I'm so glad to be with you today. And could you please write in chat what city you are from and what students of what age you work with? I can see people from Dnipro, from Lviv, from Kremenchuk. Welcome, everyone. From Chernigiv, Voznесенsk, Rivne. Good. Welcome, everyone. Zaporizhzhia. Good. Sumy. Mykolaiv, Uzhhorod. Okay, so there are people from all over Ukraine. Welcome, everyone. And I hope that today's webinar session will be useful for you. So let's begin. Today we will be talking about creativity and how to be creative using low resources. That's why I would like to outline the main goals of today's meeting, and let's do it together with you. Write in chat what words are missing in each sentence. Let's clarify the goals together. So, in today's webinar, we will take a closer look at creativity and we will discuss what it is and what it isn't. We will also explore some ideas how to make our lessons more creative using low resources. And we will find out how to provide creative and interactive feedback for our students. So, given these aims, can you evaluate yourself and say how confident you are in this topic? Look at this confidence thermometer and write in chat. Choose red if you are that confident that you can even teach this topic to somebody else. Choose yellow if you know this topic well enough to apply it during your lessons, and choose green if you need a bit of help and explanation with this topic. Okay. Write the colors in chat. So I believe that even though you are so confident in this topic, you will find this webinar useful and you will be able to apply some of the techniques during your lessons. That's why let's begin. I've already told you that we're going to talk about creativity. So let's think of associations. that we have with this word. Write in chat what comes to your mind when you think of creativity. What words come to your mind? Waiting for your words. Let's think of some associations that we have. Art, unusual, good. What else? Interesting, yeah. Imagination, new ideas, agree. Projects, right. Special, talent, right. That's right. Not boring. Okay, making something new, I agree. Unusual approach, good. So thank you for sharing your associations with me. So in fact, creativity plays an important role in the learning process as it brings inspiration and it makes the learning process itself more enjoyable. We can explain creativity in different ways and we have different associations with it, but I find this explanation the most relevant, the most correct. So creativity is a tendency to generate ideas, alternatives, or possibilities that can be useful in solving some problems, communicating with others, or entertaining ourselves and others. So let's check if we are creative teachers or not. And let's complete 2 challenges with you. Let's move on to the first one. So here is the challenge. Look around you and write a 3-line poem about what you can see in your room. But you have only 2 minutes for this task. Find something in your room and write a 3-line poem about it. And you can share your poems with others in chat. Mm-hmm. 1 minute and a half. Don't forget that it should be a 3-line poem, not just a phrase about what you see. It should be a poem. Okay, we've got one. Good. 1 minute is left, guys. Let's check our level of creativity. Oh, Ruslan Anatolievna sent us a good example. I really like it. Okay, and there are some other examples. Good. So guys, you're so creative. Now let's reflect on this task. Write in chat your responses. How did you feel during this challenge? And did it work? Was it creative enough? Write your responses in chat. Confused. Okay, confused. I believe so. All right. Puzzled, enchanting. Okay. So, was this challenge creative enough? It was. Okay. So, somebody is saying no, sort of, yes. All right. I would say it was partially creative, but it wasn't creative enough. And the explanation is that because you didn't have any restrictions, you didn't have any limitations. So I provided you with absolute freedom to write about whatever you want, whatever you see in your room. And as a result, you felt confused, you felt puzzled, you didn't know what to begin with, you didn't know what to write. And this is something creativity isn't about. Creativity is about a challenge of balancing various constraints in a constructive manner. That's when we provide some limitations, provide some restrictions for students, and ask them to find a solution and ask them to think out of the box. By using constraints, we promote creativity, we activate critical thinking, and we make the process more enjoyable. That's why let's try to complete the second challenge, and then you will reflect on it as well. So the second one is the following. Choose an object in your room, but this time you need to choose something that you use every day and write a 3-line poem about it. In the first line, you need to describe it. In the second line, write what you use it for, and in the third line, thank this item, thank this object. You have 2 minutes. Go on. Make sure that you follow all of the instructions on the slide, but keep in mind that your poem shouldn't have a rhyme. Like, it's not important for all the words to rhyme. So you've got 1 more minute to think of it and share it in chat. We've got a response from Ilona. Okay, what about others? And another one from Larissa. My coffee cup is amazing. I use it every day. It saves coffee for all my friends. Good example. Okay. So I'm just going through all of your examples. They are all wonderful. Okay, good. So let's reflect. How did you feel this time during this challenge? And did you have absolute freedom in this creative process? Mhm. Okay, and I'm still reading your poems. Mhm. Okay, I see that this time you felt more confident. It was more difficult. Okay. It was hard to choose an object. Happy. Okay. So did you have absolute freedom in this creative process? Or some of the constraints were used, some of the limitations were applied in this task? Mm-hmm. So yeah, I changed it a little bit and I clarified the task, and I provided you with instructions, and I told you what you need to write about. Yeah, I specified it. Okay. So far we have discussed what creativity is and what it isn't. It's not about absolute freedom, it's about using and balancing the constraints. And now let's look how we can bring creativity to our lessons using low resources. So one of the things you can do to engage your students into creative processes is by encouraging them to observe the world around them. You can also teach your student, you can also apply constraints. We have already discussed it with you. And you can encourage curiosity and a sense of wonder. So let's look at each of these techniques in details. So guys, what do you think? Why is observation important? Why is it necessary for us to teach students how to observe the world around them? How can it help us? How can it help our students? So, by teaching students how to observe the world, we make sure that they pay attention to details, and we prompt them to become the active participants. So let's look at the activities that you can use with your students to teach them how to observe the world around them. So the task is the following. You will be completing this task with me, and then I will share my results and you will share yours. So guys, choose your favorite color or a color that you often see. Then look around your room and find all the things that are of this color. Then close your eyes and feel this color. Imagine all of the things that can be of this color. Spend a few seconds with your eyes closed. Feel this object. Think of the things that can be of this color. And then open your eyes and think of the answers to the questions on the slide. How does your color move? In what season can you find it the most? What places does it take you to? What does your color sound like? And what is the shape of your color? So think of the answers to these questions I'll give you a few more seconds and then I will show you my result. What associations I have with my color and what answers I have prepared. So let's see. My color flows. We can find it in summer. My color takes me to the mountains. My color sounds like waterfall and it is shapeless. Can you guess the color I'm talking about based on these words, on these associations? So what color am I talking about? Yeah, I got the winner. Alona has guessed. It is blue. Blue, and the first one flows because I associate it with river. We can find rivers are the most beautiful during summer, and rivers can take us to mountains. Yeah, good. So now do the same and write your answers in chat, please. Let's see what associations you have with your color. I'm waiting for your answers. Write how your color moves. It jumps, it flies, it grows. In what season can you find it the most? What places does it take you to? What does your color sound like? Okay. A few more seconds for you to write your associations, your answers. Good. Okay, so this activity can be conducted in a different ways. You can ask your students to look around and choose one object or something that describes them today. You can ask your students to associate themselves with some animals, or you can ask them to choose an object that they associate with happiness. For example, for me, it would be rich if we talk about objects, because when I eat, it makes me happy. Or my bed, because I feel so tired after a hard day of working. So this is an amazing feeling. When I lie down, I feel happy. Yeah, so it's up to you, but make sure that you clarify what your students need to think about. Yeah. So let's move on to constraints. We have already discussed how important they can be. With the help of constraints, we can provide prompts for students to work from. We can provide questions for students to answer. We can inspire our students, and we can include a problem-solving element to make our students think out of the box. There are two types of constraints: content constraints and structural constraints. The content constraints are about the task and the information that students are going to talk about or write about. So let's look at some examples. So here is a task. My students need to write a letter of complaint to the seller and ask for a refund or for a replace. They need to write it in the way of a formal letter and use the phrases to complain. They need to include information about the product and problem, about consequence and solution. What do you think, guys? Is this task creative enough? We've already applied some constraints as we asked our students to write only like a limited number of words, and we clarified what they need to write about. But is it creative enough, or it's just a regular task from the book or from an exam sheet? Mm-hmm. So write your answers in chat. Yeah, so it's just a regular one. Nothing interesting about it, to be honest. But what can be done? What constraints can be used? What can we change? What can we add to make it more creative, more interesting and interactive for students? How can we change this task? How can we modify it? Mm-hmm. Yeah, ask to avoid using some words. Mm-hmm. That's a good idea. What else? What else can be done? We are talking about content constraints. Mm-hmm. Okay, so let's look. We can apply constraints on each of the things they need to describe in this task. And let's begin with product. So I decided that it would be more interesting to do it in a way of a random choice when the students don't get to see all of the possible options and they choose one and they have to work with one that they will get. That's why look at the numbers on my screen, choose one, and I will open the first number I'll see in chat. Mm-hmm. Okay, yeah, the first number is 4. Let's take a look. So, we need to write a letter of complaint about a balloon. Let's see what problem we've got. What's wrong with balloon? Write a number to get a problem, write it in chat. Okay, it's number 4 again. All right. Aha, so our balloon makes too much noise. Let's move on. Now we need to choose the consequence. So write the number to choose a consequence. So, and I see number 1. Okay. So, because the balloon I ordered makes too much noise, my day is ruined, or my day was ruined. Yeah, if we're talking about the past. So let me go through all the possible consequences. Yeah, so you can be as creative as you want, and you can make some funny descriptions. Now let's choose a solution, the action that we want to get, the solution of the problem. Write the number in chat, please. Let's choose a solution with you, and the number is, okay, it's number 2. Oh, no, it's number 3. Okay, so, and we would like to ask for a fund for a balloon that makes too much noise, and as a result, our day is ruined. So that's the task that we've got, and we need to write a letter of complaint in a way of a formal letter, using the phrases to complain. So what do you think about this task now? Is it more interesting than the original one? Is it more creative? Okay, this task is way more creative, as it allows our students to search for the solution using these limitations. Yeah, it prompts our students to activate the critical thinking, and it's just fun. It's something unusual, as you said before. Yeah. Okay, and let's move to structural constraints. They are connected to the number of words in a sentence, number of sentences in a text, or types of sentences you can use in your story, letter, in your text. Yeah, like you can ask your students to write only negative sentences, or only questions, or make only exclamation sentences, or use no more than 5 words in each sentence. So a few days ago, I had a lesson with my students, and I asked them to write a short story about something that they did the day before. And the task was to use only short sentences. That's what I got. One of my students wrote the story. Let's read it. I went out yesterday, alone. Really, it was fun. I bought coffee, a tasty one. I went to the park. It was full of people, and I enjoyed it. So by using different constraints, you teach students how to follow the rules and you develop their critical thinking, but make sure that your students follow the instructions and they do what is necessary to be done, monitor them during the activity. And of course, if you want your students to be creative, try to be as creative as possible yourself. And now let's move on to curiosity and how we can foster the curiosity. One of the ways to encourage our students to be curious is by using reversal thinking. It's a creative technique that helps our students to think from a different perspective. So, for example, the main question of today's webinar is how can we make our lessons more creative? Yeah. Now let's think of this question from a different perspective, and let's brainstorm the answers to the question: how can we make our lessons less creative? What can be done to make them more boring and less creative? Write your ideas in chat, please. What can we do to make our lessons less creative? What do you think? Go by the book only. Oh, sorry. What else? Too many instructions. Okay. No discussions. What else can we do to make our lessons less creative? Irrelevant topics, right? Use only the book. What else? No variety, yeah? No variety, no presentations, and so on. Similar activities. Okay, good. Now let's look at some of the answers that I have chosen from the chat. And now let's look at these answers from a different perspective and find a solution. So go by the book. How can we change it? If we look at it from a different perspective, what can we do? How can we improve the situation? Instead of going by the book only, what can we do? We can use some games, some resources, yeah, interactive books, and so on. The next one, too many instructions. What solution can you come up with? What can we do? We can make our instructions short and clear, and instead of giving instructions, we can try asking ICQs, right? So short, simple, and ICQs. Instead of stating, we will practice eliciting. Okay, no discussions. I think this one is pretty obvious. We need to provide opportunities to speak for our students to speak more. Yeah, different projects, role-playing activities, some brainstorming tasks, and so on. What about irrelevant topics? What can we do? How can we change it? Irrelevant topics. So we can conduct some surveys and find out what our students like and what they dislike, find out their preferences, and then create our lessons, according to our students' preferences, the topics they would like to discuss, something they would like to learn. Something they're interested in, you're right. And as for absence of PPT, audio, and similar activities, we need to bring more variety, use different videos, different audios, change games, change interaction patterns, change ways of checking our activities, ways of introducing vocabulary, and so on. Good. Now, let's look at some other questions which you can ask your students. So, for example, these questions can be used as a warmer or as a cooler or leading to some topics, to activate your students' thinking ability. So, do we believe in ghosts? Do ghosts believe in us? How can we make a successful video? For example, you have a topic about blogging, social media, blogging, vlogging, and so on. And instead of asking your students to answer how they can make a successful video, you can ask them to think of how they can make a terrible video. That would be more interesting and fun. They would come up with some crazy ideas, I'm sure. And the next one, what can we do to help nature? And what do we do to harm nature? But make sure that after your students come up with the answers to the reversed questions, make sure that you work on the solution to the original question. What do we do to harm nature? We consume a lot of plastic. What can we do to help nature? We can sort it. We can recycle plastic. So the main aim of reversal thinking activity is to encourage deeper thinking and to make your students really think of a solution, find a solution to the problem. And that's it. And I would like to present some other ideas and ways how to bring creativity to your classroom. One of the things that you can use and during your lessons is memes. You can show your memes to students, and you can ask your students to create their own memes connected to the topic you are studying. Whether it is present simple, past simple, present perfect, or it's a vocabulary-based lesson like I don't know, personality, character traits, appearance. So you may ask the students to come up with some cool memes and then use them during your lessons. Another thing that you can is mood scales. In fact, that's one of my favorite things that I often use at the beginning of my lessons because my students really adore these pictures. You can find them on the internet. There are plenty of them. My students like to associate themselves with animals, and I also ask them to provide some explanation. Not only they choose and say, oh, I'm number one, but they also need to explain why. I'm number one because I'm in a cheerful mood. I feel like I'm playful today. The weather is good. I got good marks at school and so on. Yeah? So they need to think of an answer. And one more activity is called I think, I thought, I think. And let's look at it. Think is an unusual question that makes you think and look at the world in a whole new light. It's a little bit different from the reversal thinking technique because these questions are more philosophical and they have no answer. It's all about associations and how you understand, how you perceive the world. So let's look at some examples. What color is Tuesday? Yeah? So I asked my students what color is Wednesday, and they said Wednesday is gray because the weather is not really good. It's cloudy and gloomy, and it's raining, and so on. So Wednesday is gray. So you can ask about any day of the week. The next one is if elephants ruled the world, what changes would you see? Again, it activates your students' thinking. The next one is which is more important, being right or being nice? You can use these questions for debates and ask your students to prove their points. And if I lose my memory, am I the same person or not? So you can find like a list of these questions on the internet. You just need to Google some the activity, the name of the activity. I think, I thought, I think. So we have discussed what can be done to bring creativity to our lessons, and now I would like to ask you to write your ideas. What else can we use? What are the resources? What are the techniques and suggestions? What can you suggest? Write in chat. Just a few seconds. And then we'll move on. Write your suggestions in chat. So I'll go through your suggestions a little bit later, and now let's move on. So now let's talk about feedback, but what comes before feedback? Oh, sorry. Look at these pictures. What is the teacher doing in the pictures below? What is shown in these pictures? What is the role of a teacher in these pictures? Observing, watching what students are doing, Exactly. So a teacher is monitoring, and every feedback starts with monitoring. With the help of monitoring, we are able to maintain discipline in the class, identify challenges that everyone is facing, and guide and support our learners. Monitoring also provides students with opportunities to ask one-to-one questions to teachers. But the most valuable thing about monitoring is that it informs the teacher where the students are in their learning process and where they're aiming to get to. So with the help of monitoring, we collect the information that can be later used during feedback stage. And let's look at what feedback is. Feedback is information that a learner receives about their language learning, and it is mainly connected with the language produced and the skills. However, feedback is not only about skills, it can be also associated with students' attitude and their general effort. Feedback is a complex system and it consists of three main components. So the first one is feed up. During this type of feedback, we ask the question, where am I going? The next one is feedback, and that is when we ask, how am I going? And the last one is feed forward. It is about where am I going next? Yeah, where to next? So I haven't told you a lot about this components because I want you to find it out yourself by doing a task. Let's look. Scan the QR code and open platform. Then open the first task and match the components of feedback with their descriptions. Mm-hmm. If you can't scan the QR code, I think that I might send you the link. I will send it to you right now. So the link is in chat. Okay, if you can't scan it, let's do it together. You can see the task on my screen. There are three components of feedback and the descriptions. Let's do it together. Let's begin with feed up as it the first component. So feed up, what is it about? Write the letter in chat. What is feed up? Write your letter in chat. I'm showing it to you on my screen. Can you see the task? If you can't scan the QR code or you can't open this task at the platform, you may look at my screen and write the letter in chat. So feed up. Okay, A, B, C. So feed up is all about clarifying the goals to our learners. So during it usually happens before the task. We set, or at the beginning of the lesson, we set the aims, we clarify the goals, and we need to make sure that the goals that we want to clarify are challenging enough and clear to our students. What about feedback? What is feedback? So feedback provides information about progress, and this information should be given in regards to the predefined goals. So how your students completed the task, if they succeeded or not, if the answers are correct or not. And feed forward is all about what is next. It's all about some additional instructions, explanations. It's all about strategies to complete the task, challenges. It's more of a focus on fluency, more information, more explanation, more. It's all about more. Okay, let's move on. So we have discussed what feed up, feedback, and feed forward is. And now let's talk about different types of feedback that we can provide to our students. So feedback works at 4 levels. The first one is task-based feedback, and it indicates whether the performance is correct or incorrect. The next one is process-based feedback, and it provides information about connections between ideas, strategies, and skills that are necessary to complete the task, the phrases that can be used in the task, and if the aims were completed, and so on. The next one is self-regulation feedback, and the main aim of this feedback is to encourage students to self-monitor, self-regulate, and self-improve. And the last one is self-feedback, and it is commonly known as RACE. And let's practice one more time. This time, open Task 2 at the platform or scan the QR code. Don't worry, if you are working from your phone and you can't scan the QR code, I will show you the task on my screen just in a few seconds, and we will do it together. We will look at some examples that can be used for each type of feedback. Okay, so let's look at these examples. So you can see them on my screen. The first one, the story is great, but you needed to use past continuous. It's an example of task, process, self-regulation, or self-feedback. Write your answer in chat. Yeah, it's a task-based feedback. So it's all about error correction, yeah? Feedback on accuracy. We collect the sentences with mistakes, and then we ask our students to analyze their own mistakes and correct them. We provide feedback on accuracy, or it is also called task-based feedback. Okay, the next one. How can you sound more persuasive and make a customer buy this product? What phrases can you use? It's an example of self-regulation, process, self, or task feedback. What about this one? This is an example of process. Yeah, we're asking questions about the process, about how the task was completed, which phrases the students used during this task, and so on. The next one, how did you feel completing this task? What is it? What type of feedback is it? Is it self-feedback, task feedback, process, or self-regulation? Yeah, so during this feedback, we ask students to self-evaluate. Yeah, we ask them to reflect on what they've done and how they can improve. And the last one, you're pretty good at it. You have a point. Great job. What type of feedback is it? The last one is self. It's praise, yeah? We are praising our students. We are trying to encourage them. Okay, let's continue. So we have discussed different types of feedback and which questions can be used to check the task, to check the process, yeah, to ask our students to self-evaluate themselves, and so on. Let's take a look at the steps we can take to ensure that we provide effective and creative feedback. And it will be I will show it to you in a way of a task that I asked my students to do and how I provided feedback for them. So let's take a look. The first step is to set the task and ask students to reflect on the aims, like why am I doing this? Yeah, where am I going? So the task was to choose one social media and prepare a short presentation about it. They had to write about pros and cons and use the phrases that we started with phrases to begin presentation, introduce new ideas, phrases to take time to think, and to summarize. And I asked them to reflect and to think of the aims. What is the main idea? Yeah, what is the main aim of this task? And that's something they came up with. So they told me that they're doing this task to practice new phrases, to learn how to make a presentation, and to talk about social media. I found these aims quite satisfactory, so we moved on to the next step. Let's look. The next step is the task itself, the activity itself. And my role as a teacher is to monitor, assist, provide prompts if necessary, and collect the information. So it's a monitoring stage. The next step, after your students have completed the task, it's time for feedback. Feedback on task achievement and language used, plus error correction. And I decided to conduct it in a way of a sentence option to make it more creative. So I collected the sentences with mistakes, then I arranged them on a slide, and I showed the slide to my students. And I asked them that they need to find the sentences. Some of the sentences are correct and some are incorrect. The task is to find sentences with mistakes and correct them. And they will have like some special things to do. So each student gets $100 to buy the sentences, and they can bet on these sentences. If they feel confident enough, they can bet more. The more confident you are, the more you bet. The person who has the highest bet gets the sentence, and he needs to correct it. If the sentence is correct, if a student is able to identify the mistake and correct, this student gets twice the money you bet. So I can say that my students were so excited, and at some point I wondered what was more interesting for them, to correct the sentences or to gain money. You know, they had this sense of competitiveness. Yeah, they were trying to get more money than their partners, so they were interested in finding the sentences with mistakes and correcting these sentences. After we have provided feedback on task, it's time for feedback on the process of learning. And during this feedback, we need to find out how well the learner managed the task. So since I wanted it to be successful, I decided to prepare it beforehand, and I created an active listening worksheet. And when my students were presenting their topics, I handed out these worksheets to them, and I asked them to listen to other group mates attentively and fill in this chart with the information about their group mates. And by the time I had to provide feedback, they were ready with the answers, and they were able to comment on their partner's process, on their partner's performance and their achievements. They were able to evaluate and assess their partners. Yeah, in such way, I found out what phrases they used, which structures they used, and I showed students how to pay attention to their partners, how to be respectful and attentive in a class. And the last step is feed forward and self-regulation. That's when you discuss what steps you're going to take next, what are you going to do next, what things you can work on, and what you can improve. So I asked my students to reflect and continue the phrases about themselves. Yeah, so how they felt during this task, what they can do to improve, and if they had to do this task one more time, what they would do. So let's talk about you. Please share in chat some other ways to provide feedback. Before I move on to the next stage, I would like to find out your opinion. Maybe you know some other ideas, share them with your colleagues. Any interesting ways to provide feedback, to provide task-based, process-based, and self-regulation feedback. How else can we conduct these? What activities can we use? How else can we do it? Mm-hmm. I'm waiting for your responses. I'm sure you have plenty of ideas. Something that you used during your lessons with your students, or maybe something that you heard of, but you've never used and you want to use, some ways of giving feedback, creative feedback. Yeah, we can also use memes as a way to provide feedback on accuracy, yeah, task-based feedback or self-regulation using some cartoons. Mm-hmm. Good. Good. So, and let's move on with you. There are some other ways, some other tips that I would like to share with you, but this time I will be talking about interactive feedback. So use random pickers. We can use it for task-based feedback. We can write the sentences with mistakes, then we choose a sentence and we ask our students to correct it. Yeah, we can use it for process-based feedback, for self-regulation, to provide our students with questions to think of, to ponder over. Next one, use leaderboards and scoreboards to keep track of your students' progress and to bring this sense of competitiveness. Yeah, that would be fun. And and use interactive tasks and interactive tasks and books and some apps. And speaking of interactive books, I would like to introduce you TalkEn.Cloud. So it's an online platform where you can find different interactive books. You can books of different levels, yeah? We have books from A1 to C1 or C2. So you choose the level that you need and you will get access to the interactive book where your students can do some tasks. They can write down the answers. They can do the matching, They can choose true or false. They have pictures, they have flashcards, they have videos and audios. So everything that you need to make your lessons more interesting. You can also use this platform as a process management system. That's when you need to, you can schedule your lessons, create groups, so organize something, leave comments for your students, and so on. So it's quite a useful management tool for managing your groups. But I would like to draw your attention to the way this platform can be used to give feedback, to give interactive feedback. And let's look at the examples. So this is the book at this platform. And let's begin with the first one. This is content. You can use content to provide process-based feedback. That's when you ask your students to look at you can ask your students to look at the aims of the lesson, look at the aims of the unit, and then you can say, have you achieved the main aim of this lesson? Did you use all of the phrases to complain? Did you use the phrases to describe a typical weekend, or so on, or something like this? The next thing that you can use this platform for is for task-based feedback, feedback on accuracy or error correction. Yeah. So after your students have completed a task and you have noticed some mistakes in pronunciation, or they don't know some words, they haven't mastered them well, they haven't learned them well enough, you can open the flashcards. Instead of searching for different flashcards, searching for pictures on the internet, all of the pictures are already here at the platform. So you can use the pictures to revise the words, to elicit the correct pronunciation. And if your students still struggle with pronouncing the words, you can play the audio and ask them to repeat. We can also use this platform for self-regulation feedback. That's when your students self-evaluate themselves, yeah, self-regulate and self-improve. So when after each task, students can save their answers and they can check. And by using this function, students are able to analyze how many mistakes they've made, what they need to work on, if this task was difficult for them, or it was quite easy. So it's quite useful. So that is basically all that I wanted to share with you today. And let's sum it up and complete one test with you. Let's look here. Read the statements and write in chat true or false. So the first one, feedback includes information about what the students did, how they did it, and what comes next. Write in chat the number of the statement and the correct answer. Otherwise, I won't be able to understand what you're writing about. So write your answer in chat. Yes. Number one is true. Number two, feedback doesn't require any pre-planning. Number two is false. If you want your feedback to be successful and creative enough, you might spend some time on thinking on how you can conduct it, what questions you may ask. You need to anticipate some problems that may arise, some mistakes that your students will probably make, And you need to be ready with some questions with the ways how you can provide feedback, especially if it's feedback on process. You might need to create a listening worksheet or just a checklist with questions that you can later send to your students and ask them to evaluate their partners. Now, number 3, feedback can be teacher-led, student-led, or a mixture of the two. That's true. If you want to foster creativity, avoid giving students a blank canvas and try to provide interesting constraints. Number 4 is true. And observing and exploring things around us helps to activate creative thinking. What about number 5? That's right. Correct. So you've done a great job. And now let's reflect. So I would like to conduct this self-regulated feedback with you. So let's reflect. Write in chat the answers. I used to think that. Before the lesson, I used to think that, and now I know, or now I think that. So I'll be glad to get your responses. I'll be glad to get feedback from you. Waiting for your responses. Take some time to analyze everything that you have learned today, to process the information, and write in chat what you used to think and what you think now, what you know now. You got an answer from Maria. I used to think that creativity is about absolute freedom. Now I think that certain constraints are helpful. Okay, thank you for your response. What about others? Ilona is writing that she used to think that feedback doesn't need a plan, but now I know that it requires preparation. Of course, there are some situations that we can provide feedback on spot if you're confident enough, but if you want it to be successful, sometimes we might need some preparation. It needs much time to prepare. Okay. Good. So thank you for your answers. And our webinar is over. If you have any questions, you may write them in chat and I will try to answer them. As for the certificates, to get the certificate, you need to complete the test. You will get the link, you will receive the link to this test after the webinar, and you will also receive a letter with some information that we have discussed with you during this webinar. So you will receive a link to the test and a letter with some brief information from this webinar. If you have any questions, you may write them in chat. Okay, so thank you for participating actively in this webinar. If you have any questions, you may write them in chat. Okay, yes, there is a question about hours. As I understand, it's about how many hours, 2 hours. In the certificate, it will be reaching 2 hours because the time spent for the test will be also included. So you will spend some time completing the test and it will be included into the total number of hours. 2 hours. Okay, thank you so much. I wish you to have interesting and productive lessons and try to be as creative as possible. I'm still with you guys, so if you have any questions, you may write them in chat. Yes. This webinar was recorded, so you will be able to find it on our page on YouTube. Okay, so that's it for today. Have a nice evening and good luck. Goodbye. It was a pleasure working with you.